Welcome to Wrasslin Raw!
All right, you're listening to Wrasslin Raw, the podcast that takes you back to when Raw became war and Attitude ruled. Thank you for joining us. You're here with Ryan Arico.
The people of Richmond have two colors of necks, light red and dark red.
Joe Giammatteo.
Well, speaking of Richmond, it has been determined by the WWF that the Richmond Coliseum in Richmond, Virginia is hell on earth.
And there goes Richmond and Virginia and our listener base. And I've got a question that's going to relate back to that here shortly. I'm the one and only Jason Bartlett. We're going to examine WWE history one pay-per-view at a time. That's right, folks. This is a special pay-per-view episode, so pay-per-view rules are in effect. We're going to be giving our star ratings on these matches. Joe is going to give us Meltzer's star ratings from the Wrestling Observer, and in the end, we're going to talk about how we think we got our money's worth. With that being said, I did have something additional to add in here. One of our YouTube releases got a comment from YouTube user 79 cents out of $1, who was very complimentary on everything that we're doing here and had one of those stymieing questions. He wanted to know just why we weren't more popular. Because, as he notes in his comment, there aren't really many other podcasts out there that are doing a chronological review of Monday Night Raw. I dare say, and I haven't done a recent search of this, that I'm pretty sure we're the only one, if not one of, and that would be a small handful of podcasts doing it. And, that just got me thinking, and I wanted to ask you guys, we'll go with Ryan first on this one. What do you think we ought to do to increase the listener base here? How could that be helped?
Well, I mean, one thing that could certainly help us out is anyone that listens to us and enjoys us, and if they haven't, go out to whichever platform you use, leave a review, leave a star rating. That helps us out in the algorithms, helps us get higher pushed up on people's recommend lists. So that's one way to help us out. If you enjoy listening to it, try and spread the word online, and that could definitely help us. One thing that obviously hurts is none of us are famous, right? That's probably the biggest draw. If you look at any of the huge wrestling shows out there, they have a big famous Hall of Fame wrestler as the draw, so he could tell his millions of Twitter followers, I got a new podcast, and boom, they already got an audience built in. So unfortunately, we got to kind of build it up from the bottom up. But outside of YouTube, which it makes sense, we don't have a ton on there. It's a video format and we're just putting audio only files on there, but we do have some followers elsewhere on other formats. So I'm not disappointed with where we're at, but if anyone wants to help us, we surely aren't going to say no.
Yeah, you'd think we'd get more with the fact that we have Rob Bartlett's son on
that's
our show.
True. That's true.
The famous Rob Bartlett. But yeah, any comments, likes, follows, all that stuff is only going to help us. And to that YouTube commenter, I will say this. Thank you, my man.
Excellent. A little bit of a falling out in the family there. One of the times that I reminded everybody that Rob Bartlett looked exactly like my grandmother. Didn't quite take that too well. In the case of this specific episode, I think we know why we lost Virginia. Richmond specifically.
It's a cold day in hell.
We're actually very strong in Virginia, so that could hurt us bad.
Yeah. That's all right. We've got the rest of the world in our pocket. We just recently secured Vietnam, and I mean, that was one of the last holdouts, so.
We love Richmond. It's just, it was a cold day in hell there.
And apparently, only two colors of necks.
Oh, yeah.
Not my fault.
Well, you know what? Let's get into it here. Let's talk about what happened in Richmond. In this episode of Wrasslin Raw, we're going to be talking about In Your House 15, A Cold Day in Hell. And this In Your House aired on May 11th, 1997 at the Richmond Coliseum in Richmond, Virginia, and featured Jim Ross and Jerry the King Lawler on commentary. Are you guys ready?
I'm ready.
Ready.
All right, then, let's get into it. Before we touch on the actual show itself, I just wanted to throw this out there. Just in case you were wondering, on the free-for-all, Rockabilly defeated Jesse James.
In case you were wondering, it got a dud from Dave Meltzer.
I assumed.
Well, as we get to the show proper here, we had another one of those black and white cinematic video packages to kick things off. On the one hand, you had, "As we sit on the edge of Armageddon, I am not afraid." A very dour and Undertaker-like statement being made. Compare that to, "Somebody's gonna get their ass whipped."
Again, The Undertaker. Clearly.
This had some great footage of both superstars in this, that being The Undertaker and Stone Cold Steve Austin. Some great-looking stunners and some great-looking choke slams mixed in there. It was overall a very good video package. JR kicked things off with Happy Mother's Day to all of the poor mothers out there that might have been forced to watch this shit on Mother's Day. Just this in general. I don't mean to say that this pay-per-view was shit necessarily, but tonight we're going to have Ken Shamrock taking on Vader. Ahmed Johnson's going to take on the Nation of Domination in that gauntlet match. But first up, things are going to get funky as we do our first match of the night. Hunter Hearst Helmsley with China defeats Flash Funk by pinfall in 10 minutes and 5 seconds. First note, Tito Santana was there with Carlos Cabrera at the Spanish announce table. Adios, Hugo Savinovich.
Boo.
I guess the Funkettes weren't here because they were afraid of China, which is yeah, really. But that was a decent enough factoid, though, along with the fact that Flash Funk was apparently trained in a Japanese dojo. According to JR, he's got a whole bunch of kids there, too. When China came out, she looked fucking great. They kind of dolled her up just a little bit for the pay-per-view. A little bit of makeup, a little bit of a fancier spandex top or whatever the hell that was called. And at the start of this match, that's where I realized that we were going to have just JR and the King on commentary.
Hallelujah.
Immediately looking up. And I had to laugh when they showed the 5 seats for the Hart Foundation there, and they accidentally showed a whole section empty behind it. It looked like there were a lot of empty seats in the Richmond Coliseum, at least for the show opener.
I heard capacity crowd at least 7 times.
Say it.
I liked the way that Hunter used some chicken shit heel work to distract the referee so China could hit Flash Funk. That was a really clever spot. And I loved the King reacting to China's thunderous right hand when she hit Funk again while the ref was distracted. I popped my ass off when JR said that Ken Shamrock had nothing in common with the egomaniac Albert Bell. Many of the 90s baseball fans out there might remember the controversial figure of Albert Bell. In 97, he was on the Chicago White Sox. I liked Hunter's knee to Flash, putting Flash through the ropes and outside to the ramp. That was a neat spot. I did not, however, care for Flash Funk's attempted comeback. He was psyching himself up there, almost looking like he was having a seizure in the ring. Zero crowd support for that. But the spinning leg drop after that was pretty cool. I liked Flash's rabbit punches in the corner. Some nice, decent, honest work there. There was a really shaky kind of a superplex. It started out being set up like a superplex, but ended up having the person dropped, just like turned in the air. But that was no more so shaky than China picking up Funk. That is up in the air, walking Flash Funk across the ring and dropping him crotch first on the ropes. She was doing some straining to get him up there. She did it, and it looked good. But it was taking every ounce of her maybe half tank of gas that she had.
Look at the muscular development on this woman.
She's a cyborg.
And that was the end of it. I mean, as far as a show opener goes, this wasn't bad. Hunter and Flash mostly did well with each other. China looked great. She delivered when she was supposed to. The ref distraction spots to set her involvement up made sense. Overall, I didn't think there was much to complain about here, so I ended up going with 2 stars. Ryan, what'd you think of this?
Yeah, I'm kind of in agreement with you here. I was surprised, when the match got announced, I was a little worried. I think we've already seen this match on Raw.
Yeah.
And it made me kind of worried that it wasn't going to feel like a pay-per-view match and it was just going to feel like a Raw match. And I can't say it definitely broke that mold, but it didn't matter. It was a solid match. Both guys put in a pretty good show. They worked pretty well together. Flash, like you said, some of his high-flying stuff was looking a little forced, but that spinning leg drop off of the the ropes was really sweet looking. I thought that was a nice looking move, and I'm not sure I've ever seen it before. I think that's maybe the first time. But Funk's boots, like halfway through this match, I just couldn't stop staring at them. They're just so ridiculous.
They're flashy. They're funky.
I feel like he could be taken more serious as a wrestler just by switching out his boots.
Absolutely.
Keep everything else, keep his name, keep the gimmick, just switch out those ridiculous boots. One thing I was a little surprised by, Chyna definitely got involved in this match, but she wasn't the difference maker at the end. And I thought that was a good touch. I was going to feel just like, all right, we've seen this a million times. He's either going to get disqualified or the ref isn't going to be looking and she's going to nail someone. But that isn't what happened. Hunter nailed the pedigree and put this match away on his own. And then Chyna came in with the antics after. And yeah, it was a little shaky at first, but she got Flash up and crotched him on the ropes, continuing her powerful look. So I'm right in the same camp with you, Bartlett. I gave it 2 stars. I thought it was a pretty solid way to start this pay-per-view off.
Yeah, I want to, repeat that Vince is not on commentary, so that increases a star for me. But the Funkettes are gone, and that takes it back down a star for me. So that is disappointing, and I think they're gone for good, by the way. I think
I was worried about that. I was
there
worried.
Was, a little bit of a problem in the back, I think, with Flash Funk's wife or something like that. I don't know what happened exactly. But
sounds spicy.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think they're gone. So it was a fun ride while it lasted, I guess. But
yeah,
the last time we saw Flash Funk, he took a guitar right to the dome, a heirloom, and I guess that was just for fun because he's okay now, and no big deal. Just a regular guitar smashing on Raw.
Little baby powder in the eyes.
Could have been worse for him. He could have ended up in the dark match like the other guy.
Oh, geez, yeah. Chyna looks more gassed up than when I saw her last, I feel. Like she looks huge.
Definitely had the acne to show for it.
They showed some clips from Shotgun Saturday Night with Chyna giving that low blow, which she had done so many times in her career. I don't know if this is the first time we've seen that, but that was nice to see. And the beginning of this match was pretty good, but it just made me think. All I could do was imagine how great of a match it would be without these gimmicks. Like, again, the blue blood gimmick is running stale.
And the boots, of course.
Well, that's part of it. Yeah, this Flash Funk gimmick and these terrible boots, like, it's just too distracting, and I can't take it seriously enough to really enjoy it. One thing that I do enjoy is that knee drop that Hunter Hearst Helmsley does. It's always just so picture perfect.
Yeah.
And Jim Ross mentioning, he calls it a Harley Race type knee drop, which I thought was pretty cool because, he's giving that credit where it deserves, where Vince would just say, what a maneuver.
Exactly.
So, that was the one good thing about having JR there. Chyna, with all this physicality, I really like it, but I do kind of wonder where they're going with it. She's definitely had an increased physicality lately with some of these guys. So curious to see where they're going with that. I'm going to go with 2 stars because I thought this was a good match, even though I think the gimmicks are kind of dragging it down a little bit. Dave Meltzer gave this 1 star. I guess he was not a fan of this match. He said it was a major disappointment. Flash Funk's offense was way off.
I guess he wanted the Funkettes too.
Mm-hmm.
Moving through the show here, they were really hyping up Ken Shamrock's debut later in the pay-per-view here. They were showing all kinds of UFC footage up on the big screen in between matches, and that led up to an interview with Ken on the Titantron. Apparently, Ken had been attacked earlier in the night. I think it was on the free-for-all. But now, in the locker room, Ken is in the zone. And he looked it when he gave a very stilted response to JR's questions about being ready to go later. This is also where we found out, and correct me if I'm wrong here, for the first time, that the match with Vader later has a stipulation where the win is going to be only by knockout or submission. I don't think we got that information any time leading up to this, did we?
I don't remember hearing it.
Yeah, every match involving Ken Shamrock has been pretty confusing up to this point, yeah.
Yeah. Just to get all of that laid out there. They're laying the groundwork for Shamrock's debut pretty well. It's a shame they couldn't have also done that for Tiger Ali Singh.
Who?
I I had to, because when else are we going to get to say his
Please
name?
edit that out. Please
Never
edit
again.
that out. I don't want to hear his name ever again.
Cut it out.
With that, we went into our next match. Mankind defeats Rocky Maivia by submission in 8 minutes and 46 seconds. Just to toss out a reminder, this was supposed to be Sid against Mankind, and they were calling an audible, I guess. I'm not sure what happened with Sid that doesn't maybe involve softball. I don't know. But at the start of this, when they were discussing Mankind's background, I had to laugh out loud when the King said that Mankind went to reform school on a scholarship. Great line. After Mankind's entrance, we got Todd Pettingzoo backstage with Rocky. He was reviewing Rocky's debut, Rocky's IC title win, Rocky's IC title loss. And once again, I can't help but think that this would have been much better placed before the start of entrances. I don't know why this bothers me as much as it does, but they need to get this out of the way before the entrances start. And I get it with Rocky, he's the last person to go out and they want to have a nice powerful lead into his entrance, which is fine. But this just doesn't do it with Mankind's music still playing in the background, and they never seem to pull it off right. Rocky's promo that he gives here in response to Todd's questions was a little shaky too. You know, it's funny to think that this matchup, Rocky and Mankind, will give us multiple barn burners just 2 to 3 years from now. And that's not to, downplay this match necessarily. Rocky's still very green. He's not even a fraction of what he will become yet. So really not fair to compare, but in the match, I loved how fast Rocky was looking in comparison to Mankind. They managed to appear at very different paces, but they were still working very fluidly. Mankind was doing kind of like the serial killer thing, being slower and methodical, whereas Rocky was doing the ultra athletic thing, just moving really quickly and solidly. I was really loving commentary in this match. Lawler and JR were really into it, going back and forth. It literally took it up a notch for me. I loved the rock bottom on the ramp. They still haven't called it a rock bottom yet, but it's getting done in every one of Rocky's matches, and every time it's looking great. I was a little put off by Rocky showboating before setting up the crossbody, but that was quickly mitigated by the reverse roll-up into the mandible claw for the Mankind victory. I thought that was a very nice little spot, too. This was a great match to follow that first one, and despite still being green, like I said, Rocky looked really good here. The action in the ring had me at a solid 2 stars, but JR and the King on commentary bumped this total experience up to a 3 for me. Joe, what did you think of it?
This is The Rock versus Mankind, guys. This is this is a heavy hitter, right? I mean, if you're expecting that, you will be a little disappointed, but I thought this was pretty good considering where we are in Rocky's career. Mick Foley really helping getting this young man, getting him over a little bit here. Really good stuff. A couple other things I want to note. The crowd had absolutely no response to Rocky when he came out, and he's getting booed by them when he's going, Bartlett, you mentioned setting up the crossbody. They were booing the hell out of him when he was doing that.
Yeah.
And he's supposed to be the babyface here. So, more interesting stuff to see how the crowds are responding to Rocky. I think this was pretty good, especially the stuff outside the ring, the stuff on the ramp, the rock bottom on the ramp. I have to think all that stuff was probably Mick Foley's idea to kind of do that stuff. I think it just really gave Rocky a boost here. These guys are going to have way better matches in the future, but I thought this was pretty good and definitely showed a little bit more versatility from Rocky Maivia. So I gave it 3 stars as well.
Well, I'll start off with saying I agreed with both of you in giving it 3 stars. It might not be as strong of a 3-star match as some of their ones in the future are going to be, but it was a very solid match. And a lot of the credit, or almost all of it, has to go to Mankind because he really did a great job of carrying Rocky through this match and making both guys look good. I mean, this is the Rock and Sock connection. You know what I mean? This is the first time we got to see it. So that's exciting. And Bartlett, you pointed out having JR and King on commentary and what they add to it. It feels right now. Seeing these 2 guys go at it with the King and JR announcing it just all seems right in the world. That rock bottom on the ramp looked fantastic. I'm not sure when they call it a rock bottom, when he starts actually using it as a finisher and it not just being one of his moves that he works into a match, but it looked great. And I thought Mankind did everything he could to make this match go over. And I really loved the ending. I thought when, Rocky went for his finisher and Mankind just reverse rolls it up right into the mandible claw.
Yeah.
It was
Excellent.
perfect. Excellent finish. And that finish is what really, for me, put it to 3 stars. I was thinking 2, and then that finish happened, and I said, I'm going to give this a 3-star. This was a good, solid match.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. What'd Meltzer think of this, Joe?
It seems like he didn't really care for it. He gave it a 1.25 stars. He said it was another match with no heat, but a good finish.
Yeah. Can't really argue with that, I guess.
If that's what he's using as criteria.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Joe, you said it best when you said that Rocky is supposed to be the babyface here.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to throw out there because the entire pay-per-view was like this with commentary, Jim Ross and the King. But this match really highlights it. You would think that by taking one person out of the equation, there might be the opportunity for a little more dead air. There really wasn't. The only times throughout the entire pay-per-view that there was just a touch of dead air was when they had clearly barbed each other to the point of making each other speechless. It only happened 2 or 3 times with some of the back and forth between them, but they kept it flowing. And not just flowing, but flowing rationally and logically. And, it wasn't just a generic throwaway, what a maneuver type of comment like you guys said. It's...
Oh, no.
This was some of the best commentary that we have had in a very long time. And it's all because there is no Vince McMahon. All right. Well, I tried to extend things and ride that good feeling about commentary, but
it's going to be crushed.
Speaking of things flowing,
they did end up disappointing slightly, but they had to, We went on to review the build-up for Ahmed Johnson's match by reviewing the impromptu gauntlet match with Crush last week on Monday Night Raw. And I just want to comment on PG-13 wrapping here, because I don't want it to influence the match rating. I'm trying not to take that into consideration. PG-13 has gotten worse. Didn't think that was possible, but this was terrible. It's like they were almost nodding off during this. They weren't even trying to match the cadence of the beat at the start of this. How does it keep getting worse? There's no need to improvise. It never changes. The song is the same every fucking time. Any other person doing any other repetitive task should get better at it. These fuckers don't. I hate it. I fucking hate it. All right. Sorry, I just wanted to get that. I just had to get that off of my chest here. Like I said, I didn't want it impacting my my match judgment.
PG-13 signatures for Christmas this year.
God damn it.
Absolutely.
Ahmed Johnson got interviewed backstage by Todd Pettingzoo, and the promo that he cut was unintelligible to me, but it blocked out hearing PG-13 and half of their shit. So that was good, and that is what took us into our next match. The Nation of Domination, and this is in order of their match appearance. So first Crush, then Savio Vega, and then Farouk defeat Ahmed Johnson by pinfall in 13 minutes and 25 seconds in a gauntlet match. That's meaning that Ahmed had to defeat those 3 wrestlers one after the other in order to win the whole scenario.
So a question before we get started. I rated each match separately.
Oh,
interesting.
Okay, so you two did them all together. I'll come up with an average then.
Okay. Yeah, I only had 1 rating here. Yeah.
All right.
But I can see how you would do that.
You can do whatever you want, yeah.
Well, at the start of things, I really liked Gorilla Monsoon kicking out the rest of the nation except for Crush, who, he's the first entrant. That's the kind of thing that I like my authority figures to do. They show up and they do useful things. They don't just schedule shitty matches for no reason with stupid stipulations, like he has half the time leading up to this. Crush's clothesline from the second rope, terrible and weak. Just to try to put a positive in this part of things, I loved D'Lo Brown's outfit, standing up on the ramp watching.
It was quite dapper.
Yeah, pretty tight. I don't know what that move was. It was like a reversed Pearl River plunge. I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But it was Ahmed putting Crush almost head first into the mat. And I winced watching it. I was like, oh, God. Like, I've asked for this moment how many times, but once it's here, do I actually want Crush to be paralyzed? I was confused by Crush calling for the nation to come down to him. He was standing right there when Monsoon kicked them all out. Like, he knows they can't come down, but I guess that's that criminal mentality, wanting everybody to break the rules. For once, Ahmed Johnson took advantage of the ridiculous setup time of the Heart Punch to reverse it into a roundhouse kick. That got Crush the fuck out of here. And then it was Savio's turn. Savio was looking good in the ring. And I don't really have, a whole lot to note about Savio's time in there other than I laughed at the King saying Ahmed got a kidney transplant from a bedwetter. That was just another great King line. They worked through Savio's time until Savio pulled out a chair and went to work on Ahmed, drawing the DQ victory for Ahmed, but leaving a beat-up Ahmed for Farouk to finish things off. And I thought that was probably the best piece of storytelling in this entire feud. However fucking long we've been doing this, months and months now, and that 2 minutes of Savio beating Crush up with the chair to set up Farouk, best part of all of it. I was really interested once Farouk was in the ring because I honestly wanted to see Farouk just beat the shit out of Ahmed Johnson. But it was very short-lived. Farouk ended up hitting the Dominator for the overall victory in the gauntlet match. Overall, I didn't think this was too bad outside of Crush's time in the ring. And what I mean by that is that this really could have been much, much worse. So, 1 star is what I ended up giving it, and I'm left just kind of wondering where we go from here with this story. Ryan, what did you have about it?
Ahmed Johnson starting off with Crush. The moment Crush
5 stars.
launched off of the ropes with that clothesline,
You popped.
I knew this was going to be a dud. And that's what I gave the Ahmed Crush version.
Oh, goodness.
That match was a dud.
Yeah.
Then Savio came in, and like you, I enjoyed the storytelling of Savio deciding at the end, you know what, screw this. It doesn't matter if I win or lose. I'm just going to beat up on him with a chair and soften him up for Farouk. So I thought that was good storytelling, and I gave the Ahmed Johnson Savio Vega section a 1 star. Then Ahmed Johnson Farouk. Again, like you, Bartlett, I was pumped to see Farouk kind of beat up on Johnson. He does for a little bit, but sadly it was a little short-lived, and he pins him relatively quick, which I was kind of surprised by because really this is the first time Ahmed Johnson has been defeated in any way.
Yeah.
I mean, that was surprising, and I gave this section a 2 star. So if you mix all of my numbers together, you end up with what, like a 1.5, and that's going to round down. So I guess I'm right where you're at. It's a 1 star with all numbers combined.
Well, my rating and comments may sound a bit strange, but I'll try to explain this the best I can.
5 star.
Best match of the night.
Not 5. 5. No, not 5. We're all very skeptical going into this match just based on what we've seen and the fact that it's fucking Crush starting this out. Crush and Ahmed Johnson nearly break each other's necks a couple of times during that. So that was ugly. However, Crush calling the nation down and they didn't do it. And then he lost. So now Farouk is pissed at Crush.
I see where you're going.
So there's some stars going up there. There's that machine is going off in my head. All right, there's some good storytelling. And then Savio gets in there. If I remember correctly, he gets disqualified, right? So
yeah.
So no beef there with Savio. By the way, are there more people in this shitty version of the nation? It seemed like there were a couple more stooges up there.
Yeah, there were 1 or 2 more people.
Maybe those 2 guys from last week.
The hard ghetto.
Those hard ghetto men.
Oh my God. So Savio is safe, and then Farouk gets in there, and when Farouk got in there, I thought to myself, you guys, we've talked about this the last few weeks. Ahmed keeps getting the best of these fucking 12 guys. And I said, Ahmed Johnson cannot win this. Like, they just can't book him to win this, or it will completely bury the nation. And Farouk looked strong, and Crush looked weak. And that's exactly what I wanted out of
5
this.
stars.
So I 5, no, not 5. I gave it 3 stars. I gave it 3 stars. I cut it down the middle. I think I like where this is going. I could be completely wrong, but I like where I think it's going.
Okay. Well, you've given me hope. Thank you. Because I was pretty skeptical going into that. I got to be honest with you.
Yeah, I went and checked the litter box and it was already empty. So I thought, well, I guess I better watch this.
It definitely ended up way better than I expected it.
Yes. Yes.
Once
What'd
Crush
Meltzer
got the
think
hell
of it?
out of there.
Of course.
Dave Meltzer gave it 3/4 of a star. He said Farouk versus Johnson was better than you would think, considering who is involved. And I think that's a little bit of a shot at Ahmed Johnson there.
Yeah. All right. Well, things are looking up. You have no idea how that improved my mood. Thank you, Joe. Really.
I'm
Crush
glad I
can
could do
get
that.
the fuck out of here.
Joe has dashed our hopes in the past.
So many times, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
but I mean, it's small consolation.
He builds us up just to bring us down.
Well, I mean, he's not totally going away. He's going to do that biker gang thing too, I think.
Yeah, but whatever.
At least he won't be associated with the nation anymore.
The nation will improve.
Yes.
Once
yes.
him and PG-13 are gone, everything will be fine.
Yes.
Yes.
Let the pieces fall into place. Yes, yes.
Well, guys, let's take a look back at the last time that Ken Shamrock was on commentary. That happened to be during a Vader match. We got footage of Shamrock yelling, "Shut up!" I loved it. I fucking loved him yelling, "Shut up!" I don't know why, because it just sounded so real and raw. The review came back, Vader backstage in an extreme close-up, like an almost uncomfortably extreme close-up. He was mastodonning it up there with Todd Pettingzoo. And I wanted to make sure to specifically mention this because I think that this was probably Vader's best promo so far in the entire time that he's been in the WWF here, because it actually mostly made sense. I mean, once or twice he went off the rails, but it actually made sense. I followed it. How about that shit? It's a fucking miracle.
What is happening to this show?
I know, right? Crush didn't result in an automatic dud. Vader made sense. What can happen next?
He got help, and that there were 2 other people involved in that match.
Okay. You're right. Thank you for saving me from giving Crush too much credit.
Let's be honest. If it was just those 2, you would have gave it a dud, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Joe?
Yeah.
Just Crush and Ahmed Johnson if we had that.
I would have. Yeah. I would
Yeah.
have.
Change the channel.
I would have checked the neighbors' litter boxes.
Yeah. All is right.
Well, Vader's best promo of all time is what took us into our next match. Ken Shamrock defeated Vader by submission in 13 minutes and 21 seconds in a no-holds-barred match. And at the start of this, we got a screen graphic up listing the stipulations. Number 1, no pinfall. Number 2, wins are by submission or knockout. And number 3, standing 8 counts. JR immediately clarified that there will be no standing 8-count rule. So we know that's not going to be the finish. I don't know what the hell that music was that Shamrock came out to. It was like a jazzy horn arrangement. You know what it sounded like? Because it sounded like the casino level of Sonic the Hedgehog 2.
Oh, jeez.
See, I was thinking, are they introducing Val Venus? It reminded me of his.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty close. Well, it didn't fit Shamrock at all. I could have sworn last week he came out to some like generic heavy metal thing back when he was burying Gold Dust.
Yeah, I
don't
think
know.
you're right.
But man, once things got started, Vader he sold the shit out of a wrist lock by actually yelling out in pain. I don't know that I've heard Vader yelling or selling half as much as he did in this match. I mean, he didn't do it throughout this entire match, but it kind of felt like they tried to make this too much like an official real sport, like UFC type of fight, instead of a WWF match in the way that the match was paced. And I know that's part of Shamrock's whole deal, and, you know, it's how they're bringing him in, but it kind of just, I wish they would have tipped it a little more towards wrestling match and a little less towards UFC. It just kind of made it feel a little disingenuous. But that being said, that angle of it made this JR's time to shine. JR's commentary was about the only thing about this that felt like legitimate commentary for a legitimate competition. I mean, he was hitting those stats. He was hitting that sports broadcaster vibe hardcore throughout this match. I'll absolutely give it to Vader, though. His big ass moved quickly whenever he was reversing Shamrock, because, I mean, you know, Ken Shamrock's pretty fucking fast in his own right. However, Vader wasn't covering his mouth enough whenever he was calling spots. At one point, whenever he was coming up the steps from the outside, you could clearly hear him yelling to the ref and Shamrock, 2 minutes! 2 minutes! I was pretty impressed with Vader suplexing Shamrock out of the ring. That was a pretty nice spot. And Vader whipping Shamrock to the corner looked great. Shamrock sold the hell out of that. He must have taken a lesson from the Hart brothers for that one. I laughed when Shamrock was a split second too late rolling out of the moonsault. Vader still caught Kenny in the head there. It's all right.
Dangerous.
I mean, I doubt it did any damage to Ken's head.
Nah.
Letter number 5.
This match got better for me when they started attempting submission holds. The first half of it was, you know, trying to trade hooks and, you know, stuff like that. But by this point, they were both clearly tired, and it felt like the selling got better for the submissions there. But then I said, oh, shit, out loud when Vader, like, half punched, half clotheslined Shamrock out of the corner. Fuck, man, he dropped Shamrock like a sack of potatoes in that. I don't know if it was a real hit or if Shamrock just sold the hell out of it or it was good camera work or what, but damn, that looked and sounded good. But that's what led into Shamrock reversing into an ankle lock to get the submission victory. Although I did want to note here that it looked, to me at least, from the hard camera angle, that referee Tim White was in between Vader and the ropes, as if like it looked like Vader could have maybe reached the ropes if the ref wasn't there. So, I mean, I don't know if that's like gonna play into anything anywhere, but just a strange thing to note. All in all, guys, I thought this was a pretty good debut for Shamrock. Vader was carried out limping. That was a nice touch to things to really put Kenny over here, as well as Vader tossing the ring stairs in like a childlike tantrum. That was pretty good too. But overall, I thought this was a 2-star match. I'm looking forward to the future for Shamrock here. He'll only get better, I think, if I'm going off of my memory here. But Joe, based on the past couple weeks and what we've talked about with Ken Shamrock and Vader both, I wanted to hear from you first here. What'd you think of it?
Yeah, I want to go back to a little bit too. We had a Ken Shamrock video package earlier of his UFC work. Yeah. Which I thought was a real key part of this because they brought this guy in. They kind of tell us where he's from, but they didn't really show any of that footage until now.
Yeah.
So I think that was a key part of this because we got to know who this guy is. If I'm a wrestling fan and I'm not watching UFC, I've probably never even heard of UFC. If I'm a kid, you know, watching wrestling, I need to know who this guy is. And I thought they did a really good job of doing that here. At the beginning, it's almost like Shamrock was kind of making it like a UFC fight at the beginning.
Yeah, with his leg kicks and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of leg kicks, and Vader did a very good job with that, basically looking like, hey, I'm getting sick of your shit, man. I thought that worked pretty well. Vader has been very bad as of late. You know, I mean, there's been a lot of stuff that has not been good with Vader, but I think he did what he could with this match. Ken Shamrock was a wrestler before UFC, so he does have wrestling experience. So you could kind of tell that this is sort of him getting reacclimated with pro wrestling.
Yeah, shaking the rust.
Yeah, for sure. But I think Vader did a fairly decent job at putting Ken Shamrock over. That was his job tonight, and he got paid to do it, and I think he did a pretty good job. So I gave this 2 stars as well.
Yeah, I completely agree that Vader, for the first time, really, since he's been in the WWF here, did a great job of putting someone over. My really main complaint of the match is that our first real match with Shamrock, and we still don't get him in a normal wrestling match. We have to attach this gimmicky, no pins, no holds barred thing to it. That's a bit of a disappointment, but really once the match started, Shamrock, when he was doing wrestling moves like the suplex on this huge monster, did a good job. And Vader was doing a great job of getting the height for Shamrock to make these moves look good. I really had nothing too much to complain. I really enjoyed the way that this match got stiffer and stiffer as it went on. It was like with each blow, they were hitting each other a little bit harder and they just came back at each other a little bit harder, leading up to that final hit by Vader coming out of the corner where he just wraps his fucking arm around Ken's head. And I know, Bartlett, you were saying maybe Ken just sold it well, but I don't know. By the way that sounded, that was a good sell, but I think it connected. And it was a great ending. Shamrock hits in this ankle lock. Vader actually acts like he was put in an ankle lock. I got to give big props to Vader. I have ragged on him pretty much nonstop since he's entered the WWF. And this may be a bit of an overrate, and maybe it's just because I'm excited to finally have Vader live up to a match that I'd like to see him in, but I'm giving it a 3-star. I thought it was a fun match and a great way to start Ken off here in the WWF.
Yeah. I mean, it's overall, it's a win-win for everybody. We don't have to complain about Vader.
Yeah, and I think it's safe to say that all three of us wouldn't mind seeing these guys have another match.
Yeah.
I mean, it was good enough that I think they can keep it going. And this was probably the first tap out in the WWF, at least in the 90s, because nobody taps out yet. Everybody just kind of,
Yeah, the ref just calls immediately.
What do you say?
Yeah. What do you say?
Well, and they gave us that stipulation, right? At the beginning, JR said, well, they could either submit by telling the ref or tapping the mat 3 times.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, Joe, what'd Meltzer think of this?
Meltzer seemed to really enjoy it. He gave it 3.25 stars. He said the match was very good and that it was realistic enough to be suspenseful in a sport way. It still had enough pro wrestling maneuvers to not look like a UFC match.
Okay, that's fair. I'll give him that. All right, well, we're coming up on the end here, guys. We got to go to Todd Pettingzoo backstage with Stone Cold Steve Austin, and this was leading into the main event. I loved Austin's line, "I don't know if the Undertaker has checked the weather lately, but I'll be damned if hell ain't about to freeze over." Perfect.
Yeah.
Just perfect.
Yeah.
Chef's kiss on that one. I mean, it was delivered in the great Stone Cold way. He got the tagline for the fucking pay-per-view in there. It was all effortless. Like, it didn't sound scripted. It didn't sound anything negative. It was amazing.
And then Todd Pettingzoo follows that up by calling a chokeslam a tombstone pile driver.
I didn't even notice that because I was trying to block out Pettingzoo's existence.
Yep.
He served his purpose by getting that line out of Austin, and I was ready to move on after that.
Where's Kevin, oh my God, Kelly, when you need him?
Right? Pettingzoo he really got into calling that review footage from last week's brawl between Austin and The Undertaker. And whenever I say he got into it, he really got into it. He was almost doing a Vince McMahon impersonation with the way that he was really getting into the call. But that is what took us into our main event. The Undertaker defeats Stone Cold Steve Austin by pinfall in 20 minutes and 6 seconds to retain the WWF Championship. Of course, the Hart Foundation showed up to claim those 5 seats right as The Undertaker and Austin were standing toe-to-toe in the ring. I thought that was very predictable, but I'm not complaining about that. I just, wanted to point out that it was pretty predictable if that's when it would happen. What was not predictable, though, was Austin rolling out of the ring after the first salvo to pull Owen Hart over the barrier and light him up a few times to give Undertaker a chance to get Undertaker's coat and belt off. I don't know if that was a planned spot or if they just kind of did it to give Undertaker that time or what, but it looked like Owen was pretty surprised about that, and it was a very, very entertaining bit of work there. It was doubly entertaining when The Undertaker came over. He sorted out Austin, and by sorted out, I mean chucked him into the ring stairs very forcefully. But then The Undertaker went over to toss Owen back over the barrier into the crowd and decided to just give the Bulldog a little love tap on top of of it. I popped my ass off for that just casual punch thrown in there by Undertaker.
For good measures.
Yeah, just a little extra, a little sugar on the pie there. Taker and Austin then got things going in the ring in earnest and started it with some great rope work into the Undertaker's flying clothesline. That was all at high speed and it all looked great. I also really liked Taker reversing Austin's headlock into a pin a couple times. That's a little thing that two professionals are doing in the ring here, and it's a great way to break up the monotony of the hold. It didn't mean anything. It didn't change the pace of things. It didn't change really anything about the match other than the fact that we didn't just have to sit in this fucking headlock.
Well, it's like he's keeping Austin honest here. You know, if you keep on doing this, I'm going to roll you up and get you in a pin.
Well, not just that, but for years now, we've complained about people sitting in holds. We always acknowledge that they need to sit in a hold sometimes to either catch their breath or to figure out what they're going to do next or whatever. But this was just a fantastic way to not make it boring like it usually is. Spice it up a little bit. I liked JR addressing the King's support of Bret Hart. Despite their adversarial past, JR threw out the Kiss My Foot match right in the King's face there. I thought that was great. Speaking of keeping people honest. I was enjoying the camera angles on the Hart Foundation showing their reactions to Austin getting beat up. You know, there aren't many times when you can say that Bret Hart looks happy, but this was one of them. I loved the King saying that he would beat up JR, but he's got a thing against cruelty to animals. Great shit. Great shit. I was surprised at seeing The Undertaker put a half Boston Crab on Austin. How often do you see The Undertaker using a submission hold? Not very fucking often. It was funny when it looked like Austin was trying to set up a figure four. I don't think he was setting it up correctly because Lawler and JR both commented on how it didn't look like he was doing it right. That was one of those few instances of dead air because I think they both kind of made each other break a little bit on how they were commenting on that. At one point, JR called this a grueling matchup, and I couldn't agree more. This match felt brutal and relentless in a way that a lot of matches with lesser talent just can't quite pull off. Something that I hated, though, Earl Hebner giving Austin the finger when Austin complained about being hit in the balls. That was the first thing in this match that I disliked. I was 100% behind this up until that point, and that knocked it down a peg. Didn't like it one fucking bit. No Hebner.
Hebner obviously has eyes in the back of his head.
Right?
Or he knew it happened because it's a storyline. Thanks, Hebner. Breaking kayfabe.
Terrible.
Fucking asshole.
Worst referee
the
ever.
Worst.
I quickly forgot about it, though, when Pillman snuck over and rang the ring bell to distract everyone. I mean, so that was an appropriate time for Hebner to act pissed off.
Yes.
And he did. Totally appropriate, totally in character. That was good. That was the right way for a referee to act. But that ring dinging that Pillman did there, that set up the distraction, giving The Undertaker time to sit up after the stunner. Stone Cold thought he had the match with that bell being rung. But after The Undertaker sitting up, the reversal and then a re-reversal of the tombstone, really cool spot. I can't say that we've seen that before. That looked brand new. And it made The Undertaker's victory that much more special. For a split second, it was right there to the line. We didn't know which way it was going to go, because both men had been through such a battle to get to that point. I do wish the count had been a little faster because, again, Earl Hebner drew it out, slow 3 count. It almost felt like it was killing the moment. It didn't, but just it's standing out like a sore thumb.
But he's the
me.
worst.
He is the worst. After the end of the match there, the Hart Foundation rushed in and went after The Undertaker. To me, that didn't make much sense because that left Austin alone, the guy that they've been hating on for how long now. I mean, I know Bret wants the belt, but that just gave an opportunity for Austin to go to Bret there in the crowd. Bret was left alone. Austin tipped over Bret's wheelchair, which I thought was nice and petty. And grabbed a crutch and then went after the rest of the group, and he cleared the ring to do that. And after he clears the ring, there's time for Austin to hit one more stunner on The Undertaker before giving Taker the bird and leaving as we faded to black. Aside from Earl Hebner getting too uppity. I didn't think that there were any missteps here. This was an entertaining as hell match. It felt like championship material, which is something that we haven't been able to say about all of our matches lately, or championship matches, I should say. And it did a fantastic job of working within the overall story of the feud. I ended up going 4 stars on this. Ryan, what did you think of it?
Yeah, I was very happy at the end of this match. One thing I definitely have to point out, though, is at the beginning, first we have Stone Cold come down and the crowd loves him. They're going crazy. Undertaker comes down. He's got his long, drawn-out entrance that it's classic, everyone loves. Again, the crowd just going crazy. Then the Hart Foundation comes down, and people are throwing shit, they're booing, and at that moment, you could just feel an intensity in the crowd. Like I haven't felt in a long time out of a crowd. This crowd was amped up, and they were ready for this match with everyone involved, because outside of just liking the two competitors here, they also had this pack of hyenas at ringside, just egging everyone on that they just absolutely hate now. And I don't think I've seen in anything we've watched yet a crowd this much on the edge of their seat ready for a match. And I thought for the most part, outside of Earl Hebner, it lived up to it. They started off with Taker and Austin just exchanging haymaker after haymaker on each other, and it looks great. Bartlett, you pointed out Undertaker going for the half Boston Crab. I don't know the last time I saw Undertaker go for a submission, but to me, it kind of added something to this match because it was like the Undertaker was almost in desperation mode going after the Boston Crab. This is a different Undertaker, and he felt like he had to do this to get one up on Austin. I love the height that Austin gives Taker on these choke slams. He jumps up and he's like a mile in the sky before he comes down, and it just looks great. The double reversal ending thing was another really good thing. Bartlett, you pointed out, it just looked great. I don't think we've seen it before, and just like the Mankind match, it added an extra spice to this match that just made the ending special. It didn't feel like your everyday average ending to a match. It felt special for a pay-per-view. After the match, at least we got a fairly clean win. I mean, you had Pillman ringing the bell that added a little bit of confusion, but for the most part, it's a clean win. And then the Hart Foundation comes in to start their feud now with The Undertaker. So storytelling, match-wise, I think everything was firing on all cylinders here. And I agree with you, Bartlett. I gave it 4 stars. I really enjoyed it.
For me, match-wise, for probably like the first half of this, it was kind of running on that average 3-star wave for me a little bit. However, it did boost for me. There were some little things here that I really enjoyed. Number one, no. Number one is just the fact that they have the Hart Foundation sitting in the front row is just, to me, that is something that is clever and different. It's not your typical just run-in interference that we always get. It's a trap. It's a trap. They were there. They're going to get involved, but like, how is it going to happen? I like having that thought in my head during this entire match. Another little thing is when Brian Pillman is ringing that bell, the camera work there was perfect because they didn't show it. So we were wondering, what the hell? Even JR was like, what's going on? What is that? And then it pans over to crazy ass Brian Pillman ringing the bell.
With that fucking smile.
Yeah. So it's just great. It's great storytelling. And then Austin and Undertaker, I mean, like you guys have said, with the finish was just fantastic. The counter and the reverse tombstone. And then Austin, again, he's done this before. I really like when he sells the tombstone because his legs are flailing and he's like, no. It's like, no. And it hits. I don't think there's anyone who sells a tombstone better than Austin from what I've seen so far.
And for me, a chokeslam too. I think both are just sold flawlessly by him.
Yes. And obviously it puts over The Undertaker, but it doesn't take anything away from Austin for losing. You know, he did whatever he could to not get caught in that tombstone, but he just couldn't shake it. You know, Undertaker is the champion for a reason. So I just, all of the storytelling around this, I thought it had a really hot ending too. And I really enjoyed it. I give it 4 stars as well.
Nice. What'd Meltzer think of this?
Dave Meltzer gave it 3 stars. He said it was a good match, but not on the level of most WWF pay-per-view main events with guys like Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels involved.
You know, Joe, you said something that I felt was a really, really, really good point. This was a loss, you know, for Austin. Took nothing away from Austin at all. Nothing at all.
Yeah.
I mean, not just the action in the ring, but, you know, Undertaker was even so gracious as to give him that last stunner before Austin left the ring. You know, he may not be leaving as champion, but he's leaving as almost the victor.
Let's be honest here, Stone Cold, you know, his spot with the fans just keeps on rising and rising, but he has lost his last 2 matches on pay-per-view, yet keeps on rising. So obviously you don't have to win to get over.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, another great point. Let's end it there because I was going to say something that fits in with my final response here. Guys, as I said, we faded to black, so let's talk about the most important question of all. I wanted to ask you both, at a premium price of $19.95, did you get your money's worth? Joe, why don't you take that first, please?
What was that price again?
$19.95.
So they did go up a little bit over the last year or so. I would say yes, because of this last match. And Ryan mentioned too, the heat. You know, Dave Meltzer said that other matches were lacking the heat, but that last match really had the heat. You could tell the Richmond crowd was really into it. And I thought it was a great finish to the show. And I mean, you even got a little bit of a Ken Shamrock kind of debut match. I guess it was his first pay-per-view match.
First real match, non-exhibition.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'd say, I did get my money's worth, and I think they did a pretty good job considering they don't have guys like Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart working this show.
Yeah.
I have to say, I absolutely got my money's worth. I mean, outside of the mediocre-ish of the few matches that Ahmed had, everything worked really well. I mean, even our lesser matches were getting, 2 stars here. I don't think anything got a dud outside of Crush. And the last 2 matches I thought were very strong, and the final match extremely strong. So I think there's no 2 ways about it. I got my money's worth for sure.
You know, I was a little wishy-washy at first, but then a couple things that came to light during the discussion of this pay-per-view here tonight. You know, I was at a yes, but it was a wishy-washy yes. But Joe, once you pointed out that the whole Crush thing kind of hints toward him maybe leaving, but then also whenever you both pointed out how strong everybody came away from this. I mean, in a lesser sense, earlier in the night with Hunter Hearst Helmsley, China, like all those other matches, Farouk and the Nation of Domination, Ken Shamrock, even Vader. Vader looked the best that he has looked in a while. So I think overall this was a net win. So I said yes before whenever I was doing my notes, but I think I'm gonna have a very strong yes now, because upon further review and discussion, this was a pretty damn good pay-per-view.
And especially for an in your house.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like JR says, it's all about the pay window, Vader earned his paycheck tonight.
Yes, he did.
More cheese on that Whopper.
Yes.
Yeah. Speaking of, Joe, do you have some numbers from the Observer there for us?
Yeah, this was not a very well-received show by the Observer readers. Only 27.1% thumbs up, 47.9% thumbs down, and the rest in the middle. They didn't like it.
Yeah, I wonder what their issue was with it.
Yeah, I don't know. The best match was rated as Ken Shamrock versus Vader, and the worst match was Ahmed Johnson versus the Nation of Domination.
Yeah.
And Dave Meltzer has some comments about the show, saying that whether the WWF's Cold Day in Hell show was going to be a good or bad show was far less important than the bigger question the show would begin to answer. Does Ken Shamrock have any potential as an American-style pro wrestler by WWF standards? Based on his first major match, the answer seems to be strongly in the affirmative. So Dave is a big Ken Shamrock fan. But he does say Cold Day in Hell was just another Sunday afternoon pay-per-view show that will largely be forgotten by the end of the week.
It makes me wonder. So, like, we don't talk to each other. We don't compare our ratings for these pay-per-views or anything. So I wonder what 25 years has done to make all three of us, for the most part, we were agreeing on most of these matches. We might have differed a star or so here or there, but we felt, all three of us, that this was a fairly strong pay-per-view. But we look at what the fans felt like and Dave Meltzer felt like back then, and it was a negative. So it's just a little odd. I wonder what's different, what made us like it, but the general audience back then not.
Yeah.
Just based on just through reading these Observer newsletters throughout the 90s and stuff, like it seems like the Observer readers and Dave Meltzer are looking for that classic match all the time.
Do you feel that Dave Meltzer's mindset influences the polls there?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and he's a big fan of Japanese wrestling.
Yeah.
And even back here in this time period, he'd push the underdog. So he was a big ECW guy, and a lot of the readers were very positive about ECW shows. So he definitely, swayed their opinion, was very persuasive for his readers.
Kind of like how he likes the Young Bucks and
yeah. Well, I think age has not been his best friend, but
yeah.
But back here, it seems like that's what I get out of this, is that the readers and Dave are always looking for that classic match. And it's not going to happen every pay-per-view. Sometimes you have to have this show where you're not going to get a classic 5-star match, but you're still going to get some decent storytelling and some big names.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. This wasn't called WrestleMania. This was called fucking In Your House. So I expected In Your House level quality of matches,
Mm-hmm.
But it delivered on that.
Yeah.
So I am a bit surprised that there is no mention of Psycho Sid.
So last couple weeks, it looks like they're reporting that he does have some sort of a back injury. Now, whether you want to believe that or not, I mean, that's up to you. But he has had MRIs and all that stuff, and he does have some sort of back injury that he's dealing with. So that's what has kept him off of Raw and obviously this show.
MRIs, RBIs, what's the difference?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, thank you, Joseph. Illuminating as always. And again, overall, just a pretty damn good pay-per-view. I dare say that I would recommend that anybody listening please make an effort to go back and watch this. It's an underdog, a sleeper pay-per-view, if you will. And that's it, folks. We are done with this one. I want to thank you again for joining us. If you like what we're doing here and want to connect with us, you can email us at WRASSLINRAW. Just add @gmail.com to the end of that to submit questions or comments. Check us out on social media and on every podcast subscription platform. While you're there, don't forget to follow and subscribe to get every episode of Wrasslin Raw coming to you every week. Give us a 5-star review and tell all your friends to tune in to the most shocking Monday Night Raw review podcast on the airwaves. Next week on Wrasslin Raw, we're going to take a look at the Raw that aired on May 12th, 1997, with matches featuring Scott Putski, Rob Van Dam, and many more. So, for Joe and Ryan, I'm Jason, and this has been Wrasslin Raw.